We have got a repair on a 15-year-old club that looks like it's all of 15 minutes old. Check this one out. Welcome back to the McGolf Shop. Jim McCleary here, and we are going to do a repair. Actually, not a repair, it's a shaft swap. And a customer from Boynton, Florida wants us to take a shaft out of that, a Titleist 905R. Titleist 905R is circa 2004, 2005-ish, and it had some brother 905s, the 905T, 905S, and they all ran around 45 inches, and they were 460cc heads. Now they all started, it was kind of unique, you don't see it too often now, is they started around 7.5 degrees of loft, and they go 8.5, 9.5, 10.5, 11.5, up to 11.5. Very rarely did you see anything go above that. Now, some of the characteristics of a 905R are, it's a very tall face, right? From here to here is very, very tall in comparison. It also has a very small presence at address, all right? All of that is very, it's not the big bulbulous type, which is a thing a lot of golfers are liking right now, okay? Or are still. They like that smaller face, and you can get that smaller appearance. And you get that smaller appearance as the club gets taller, all right? As the club gets taller. Before we move on, if you would, like, subscribe, and then that way you get more of these videos when they drop, and when you hear, you get more notifications. If you're interested in a hat or a divot tool or even an apron, we have them in various sizes and colors. If you email us at McGolfShop@roadrunner.com, we can tell you everything that's going on. Alrighty, so the other thing we need to really pay attention to here is this. If we look at this guy, alrighty, we see that there's grain, right? And we got to go with the grain. Now, it's not going to be too hard because there's some wear marks on it, but not a lot. And the paint is in pristine condition. It has a very nicely done ferrule. I can't tell you if this was the original, but if it's not, it's pretty doggone close. Now, the other part that this has that none of the other ones do is this. See that silver ring right there? Right, that silver ring? That silver, oh, I got one, hold on. That silver ring is this guy. All right, so what it does is it sets basically in here like that inside the head as a, it's a sleeve, obviously, is what it is. And I believe what it was for is to dampen some of the feel. The word is that it's kind of a loud club. I never thought so, but it's an aluminum sleeve. It transmits a lot of heat. So the trick is to be able to pull it out without pulling out the sleeve, because re-gluing the sleeve is not fun. Also, you need to have a specific Titleist ferrule. And the Titleist ferrules are a little taller than average. Right? They're a little taller than average, and they have a collar. So the ferrule has a collar on it, and then that's what sits down in the recess inside the head. And what are we going to put in it? We're going to put in a Graphiloid blue. All right, the Graphiloid blue and an R-Flex. Now it has a stiff flex in it of 75 grams. So this was a swinger's club. Now the other thing we need to talk about is the entry into the head is here, and it doesn't exit till right there. So you have about, last count was like 3.5 inches. 3.5 inches that this club is just grabbing, right? They're just grabbing it, and it's making it stiff. So what people used to do is get very tip flexible shafts and put them in there, and the fact that it went through there would stiffen up that tip section. So you got kind of the best of both worlds. You got a super stiff, tip stiff club without all the harshness. And the shaft of choice at the time was the YS is the YS Plus, right? The YS1, YSK, YS1, YS Plus, right? By Graphite Design. It was the purple shaft. And it was very flexible in the tip section for most part. And it had just enough tip section. And then it felt really, really good. So, history lesson of the time. So here we go. So what do we got to do? We've got to take off the ferrule. We've got to take off the grip because, well, maybe not. We'll see. Normally you see me when I put my little adapter on here and I have to pull it out. In this particular case, we're not going to have to. We're going to just take it off right here and then we're going to put it in the shaft puller right there. So let's just go over to the bench and do it. All right, so the first thing that we got to do is we got to get rid of this guy right here. And with a little bit of heat and a knife, that's going to get done quickly. So we got it removed. Here's the rest of it right here, but it's all gone. Now what we've got to do is we've got to run heat up through here, heat through here, heat through here, and then bring it back around and get to the top. Now this is going to take a bit because it's so big and we don't want to burn any paint. We got to keep everything moving. I think we've got it. Now we're going to try and pull it. Now why did I do that? The head is so thick and so big that you have to take your time with it, and especially when we're not wanting to burn the paint. Here we go. And there it comes. And there we go. And we got her out. So now I'm going to clean this out and I'll be right back. All right. So we got this out. Oh, and I took off the ferrule piece off the other one. All righty. So what we did was I had to do some cleaning. All right. So because you saw when I was taking off of the ferrule, the heat got on there and discolored the chrome area, and that's not uncommon. So I got that figured out. We've got all this taken care of. It's all cleaned back up because this thing is really in good shape. So you got to really be particular on how this is coming out. Now, he wants this shaft in logo down, and this is in typical Titleist fashion. It don't fit. Just means we got to take off some. But normally when you're doing this, it's only about this much. Wait until I come back and we try and make this fit. so what did we just see? Well, that's a whole lot of tip. There it is. That's a lot of tip section. And you notice it took many trips back to the sander only because I didn't want to take off too much at one time. Last thing I want to do is make it too weak all the way up and down there. So with a lot of concerted effort, making it the same going up and down, I was able to get it through, right? And there's a little stopping point in there. And that stopping point is where the body and everything marries up. And then we get it here. And the idea here is just to barely get it above, you can see it just right above the top there, because when we go to cut it off, that's going to be the top. And nothing says rookie than I'm missing that piece. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So now what we have to do is place it logo down, right there, put our ferrule on it, and then we're gonna put the ferrule on it, glue it, let it rest. We're gonna come back tomorrow and we're gonna finish it off and talk about some more about some of the stuff on the Titleist head. So see you tomorrow. Let's get all our pieces, parts together. That's from a previous glue job, and I got parts I got to put away. Alrighty, so we have all that, and that, and one more. The infamous hosel pin. You've seen us use these before. So we're going to rough this up real quick. We're going to rough this guy up real quick so it'll go in right away. Now normally you see me chop this thing off to prevent going beyond the bottom of the club. However, we're not going to have to worry about that because the bottom won't ever get to the bottom. All right, so we got that. So let's use some 420 glue. I got some good, probably too much, but it's going to work fine. Got to give it a good stir. I got asked this on my live stream, and again, for those of you that don't know, I do a live stream and we talk about golf equipment, golf repairs, and golf opinions, and just about everything else in between. And that's Monday, Monday 17:30 or 5:30 Eastern time. So I was asked about how much of this to use and if we've ever seen a failure. And the answer is yes, I've seen a failure. And what I use is just a light dusting and just what you saw. Alrighty, so first things first is I use this as basically my glue spreader. And what I do is I start from the bottom first to make sure that that glue gets in there, because if you start putting it in from the bottom or from the top, most of this glue has already been dispersed and it never makes it to the bottom. All right, now let's put some in on the top. All righty. I never did say that this was a clean job. One more thing we need. All right, so let's put the ferrule on. And that's going to fit on there really tight. That's a good thing. Now, let's push it down. All right, the very first thing that happens when you work on these things, if you get glue on your hands, just like I did, you want to get rid of it. Because certainly it'll go a place on the golf club you don't want it to be. So, a little bit of acetone. You wipe off all that residual and we'll just kind of help it along here too. Alrighty, so back to this. So this is going to be kind of a working thing here. Sometimes you might have to apply some heat in order to get it loosened up, but we're getting it going through there. So I'm going to do some tapping to the side. Okay, let's make this thing a little bit easier. It's about 5 seconds worth. As you can tell, we're getting closer. All right, we got her. Let's wipe off some excess, and then I'm gonna have to move the ferrule back in. All right, we got that. I don't know if you can see or not, but see how that's just barely over the top, and that's exactly where we want it to be. All right, I'm gonna have to go push this ferrule on, so give me a minute. All righty, we're back. There's nothing easy on this guy. All righty, I wanna make sure that I don't have a shoulder. I think I'm in pretty good shape. But anyway, let's put the pin in. Again, we want to tap this guy on. Nice and tight there. Wiping off some excess. And then we'll put it on the shelf later on, and we will show you the rest of it. So again, see you tomorrow. All right, it's next day, and we're doing the Titleist 905R, right? It's the bore through. The bore through with a sleeve. That's what makes it different. Now we know that there was at least three models that I'm aware of, the R, S, and T, and then there was an F, but that was for the fairway wood. And we're putting in the Grapholoy blue, and we're putting the logo down. So it's looking pretty good. So before we do it, I'm not doing the whole club in front of you. I finished the ferrule. And it came out pretty good. And now it looks a little bit bigger than the original that was on here, because I don't think that was original. It might have been, you never know. This certainly is. So it's going to have that good classic look. So the real big part here is, we've got to get rid of this. Now, what's important here? This is a really, really good condition club. Normally when I mess with these things, there's all kinds of scrapes and just all kinds of scratches, and any kind of movement I make on it is an improvement. This one, on the other hand, everything I can do could take away from it, and that's a problem. So what we're going to do is try and minimize the amount of touch I have here. And if I don't like the way that the current belt's working, I may show you I may show you a new technique by hand, and we're going to see how that works. So we're going to go back over to the bench. We're going to take this off, see how it works. Oh, by the way, the stock number for this is 45 inches instead of 45.5, which just goes to tell you the timeline this was made in. So now, let's go over there. Okay, so what you saw me do, well, I'm probably explaining it while that noise is going on, but what I like doing is taking the knife around and cleaning it up. It just makes the sander work easier, okay? And it gives it a much more professional look, and that's what it looks like right now. All right, so there it is. Now, like I told you, what I was concerned about was making it look bad. And if you look, we'll see if we can get that in here. So you see where it's a little shinier than it is right in this area, and it's a little bit smoother. Now what I did is I disappeared a little bit, and I'm gonna have to show you the technique, okay? And what I have is called emery cloth, and it's a 240 grit emery cloth, and it's no more wider than this, and it's sandpaper. So take a look at that. And all I'm going to do, and it's really going to be kind of tough, but the reason why I'm doing this is because it puts grain into the thing. Alright, so we're doing this during working hours and a whole lot of people came in all at once, and I didn't want to mess this up because I was just on a really good roll with it. And what I did is I used the hand method using what was called emery cloth in the 240. Now the thing with this emery cloth is it has a lot of grit, and it's not nearly as smooth as one would think, and it comes out looking like that. Alright, comes out looking like that. And the reason why I went with that, because my normal belt puts a slightly shinier finish on it and not nearly as scratchy. And when this thing was original, it had a really heavy grain on it. And that's what I wanted to give him back, was something that was a heavy grain. So that's where they came out at. So I'm really kind of interested to see how this is going to turn out. I'm going to actually spec it and just see what happens. And then we'll put that there at the end when we're doing all this. So that's a bore through. We'll kind of recap. It's got the extra piece, which is a sleeve. Okay, it's a sleeve, and it's for dampening of vibration, maybe a little bit of sound. It's also something that can come out if you're not particularly careful, and that's the thing that's really tricky about this. Keep in mind, you're also holding up. You're going to hold about 3.5 inches worth of tip section. So if you have a stiff tip, it'd probably be stiffer, right? And that's the reason why we talked about a more flexible shaft or a more flexible tip section going in there to stiffen it up, and it actually gave a bunch of good feel. Now this guy is a board, but it's in regular flex, so it's probably going to play a flex stiffer anyway because of the way it's made. They are 45 inches long, and they came in anything from 7.5 all the way up to 11.5. And this guy is in just phenomenally great shape. And that's what we're trying to do, is keep it there. And that every step I did, I kept checking the way to make it go. So we're just going to put the grip on it. I'll show you some here at the end, and we'll put some specs to it, and that's the way it is. So stay to the end with it, but as always, like and subscribe. That way you get more. If you got any questions, put them in the show notes. And as always, let's see your scores go low.